Las Vegas Raiders at the Indianapolis Colts. Colts favored by 3.5 here.
Yeah, this is a line that jumped out to me as slightly strange, no?
I think it depends. I mean, look, the Raiders are playing excellent the last couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that has been dependent on turnovers? So we talk a lot about offense being the more consistent thing. The Raiders literally just won a football game against the Super Bowl champions without completing a pass after the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that happened because, Kansas City botched a handoff. That's an unforced error by the Raiders. And then they had a pick six. Forced error, but, a bad error by the Chiefs as well. That's how they won. I know they dominated the Chargers a couple weeks ago, but again, it was a lot of turnovers. So that's the key. And they're going to Indy, and, Colts are having a pretty good season. They're coming off a really disappointing effort last week against the Falcons, but Colts playing for a playoff spot here. And I think technically the Raiders, if they win out and the Chiefs lose out against the Bengals and the Chargers, if that happened, the Raiders would get the AFC West title. Just
rooting for that. That's some fun chaos.
You rooting for that chaos?
That would be funny.
Like if the Chiefs just
objectively funny,
legitimately imploded.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening.
No, it seems unlikely, but still, it would be pretty hilarious.
So what do you think in this one?
Well, as I say, I think that's a slightly strange line. I mean, I think the Raiders have shown the last few weeks, okay, yes, they relied on turnovers. They didn't do a whole lot in the passing game. That being said, I think there were plays to have been made. I mean, Davante Adams dropped passes that were thrown well by Aiden O'Connell against the Chiefs. Now, I think the Chiefs did a very good job in terms of physical coverage and, matching up with Davante Adams one-on-one. But there were passes there that, like, you would say 9 times out of 10, Davante Adams is coming down with that. Like it was a classic Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams back shoulder throw, even in tight coverage. He's been making those plays for the last, for his entire career, and he didn't make them against Kansas City. So I would say there are throws that would normally be made, and the Colts are not as good as Kansas City on defense. So I feel like the Raiders can still have success on offense, and their defense has been pretty good, even without the turnovers.
I see the chat saying Maxx Crosby is going to eat for the Raiders, and it's in my notes that you got to keep an eye on Maxx Crosby now.
Against your friend?
No, Braden Smith, I think, is going to be back. According to our depth chart, he's not on the injury report. Braden Smith, the Colts right tackle, he's been banged up in and out for much of the season. Very good right tackle overall. Had it been Blake Freeland, though, who's just 2 years away, he's just not ready. That would be an absolute disaster. The Colts have 2 pretty good tackles, Bernard Ryman and Braden Smith, when healthy. That will be a good matchup, right? Because when you look at the Chiefs last week and their offense against the Raiders, the story is very Chiefs-centric, and rightfully so, right? Patrick Mahomes, the most recognizable NFL player besides maybe Travis Kelce now. Mahomes has the worst game of his career, and there was so many ways to break that down. But I think the bottom line for Mahomes and the Chiefs is Mahomes was like looking at the rush, man. Like he was worried about where Maxx Crosby and Malcolm Koonce were every single play for the Raiders. And I want to give the Raiders defense so much credit. I wasn't expecting that. It looked like only Maxx Crosby and a few guys who have played good ball at various points in their career on this defense. Koonce has stepped up. Crosby's a baller. They're moving him around a little bit more. Yes. They're stunting him a bunch. Teams are like they have to worry about Crosby and Koonce now. And that has been the key for this Raiders defense. They're working downhill, they're tackling, but it starts up front with those 2 edges.
I was literally looking that up. Previously, Maxx Crosby had been one of those players that only played on the left side of the defensive line, never moved, always lined up that one spot. This year, he is moving around a lot more because I saw this cut-up of like plays where he's chasing down Patrick Mahomes, and it jumped out how many of them came from the other side of the line.
Yeah.
And that is happening a lot more. It's getting close to like 20% of his snaps are now coming from the other side of the line. So,
did he do that against the Chargers? Because last week they have Wanye Morris, 3rd-round rookie for the Chiefs, and on paper it's like, yeah, we want Maxx Crosby against him more often.
Yeah.
Chargers maybe not as much, but
no, he didn't do it almost at all against the Chargers.
So that's interesting, right? Is that the Raiders are looking, and the Colts don't really have holes. Again, I don't know how healthy Braden Smith is, but the Colts have a good offensive line, and probably the best that the Raiders have seen in a few weeks here. So we'll see if they can keep that up. But yeah, it is interesting that they're willing to attack those matchups here.
Another interesting thing is that it's not necessarily by who's out there. I mean, he's a couple of games where he's barely done it at all. One of them was the Chargers, where it does make sense, right? They have a much stronger left tackle than they have a right tackle. But the previous game where he hadn't done it at all was the first time they played the Chiefs. So it's not necessarily. Now, the tackle is different from that game, right? Donovan Smith was still the left tackle at that point.
The first game around? Yeah, I think he probably was.
So, but Donovan Smith, you would still say, is a potential weakness relative to the offensive line, even not necessarily as much as Wanya Morris, but certainly something that you could attack and you wouldn't deliberately stay away from the way you might with Rashawn Slater. But the point is, they are moving him around a lot more than they've done previous years, and that will only help his production.
So, yeah, I think it's a sneaky fun matchup here, Sam. I know the chat also mentions that Gardner Minshew is going to find Jack Jones, keep that pick six streak alive. Minshew's been a little bit better at taking care of the ball, but if you look at the whole season, ton of turnover-worthy plays from Minshew. Michael Pittman still in concussion protocol after that big hit that he took from DeMonte Casey on that Saturday game a couple weeks ago. Don't know if Pittman will be back for this game. The offense did not look crisp last week without him, and I think it's an underrated aspect of what the Colts have done when they were putting wins together. And, they're in this position where they're tied atop the AFC South record-wise. Pittman's had a lot of games where he's been the top option, and the offense just couldn't do much last week without him.
No, it's a rough-looking receiving core when he's not out there. It's one of those ones that doesn't look great even when he is out there, but when he's not, it's ugly looking. Passer rating when targeting Jack Jones this season, Jack Jones, the Patriot, 136.6. Jack Jones, the Raider, 31.5. And that doesn't, you don't get a bump for scoring on the interception.
Yeah, and then EPA is through the roof.
Right, exactly. Interestingly, that means when you add those two together or average them out, he ends up with 67.2, which is almost exactly what it was a year ago when it was 63.1. So it's like Jack Jones has ended up being the same player. It's just it's gone from, awful with the Patriots to amazing with the Raiders.
Well, Antonio Pierce and Patrick Graham are getting Jack Jones to the Hall of Fame if he keeps this up. It's the next DeRon Bland here. Can he catch DeRon Bland?
As long as he's comfortable being second fiddle to that linebacker whose name I can't even remember anymore. The guy they're going to build the defense around.
Oh, Robert Spillane.
There you go, Spillane.
Yeah.
As long as he's comfortable playing second fiddle to Robert Spillane in the defense.
Build around Spillane.
He can go to the Hall of Fame.
All right, Vegas getting 3.5. Colts favored by 3.5 here. Where are you going with this one? Sounds like I know.
Yeah, Vegas.
Yeah. I'll also take the Raiders. I'll buy into their little hype. And I'm also secretly rooting for the chaos that you mentioned. That would be